All right. Dave Bartoo. He's into everything. Coaching analytics, sports betting, all kinds of cool things. Numbers, metrics, all kinds of fun stuff. Dave Bartoo on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line, which means this whole segment, the next 24 minutes, is brought to you by the Golden Moon Casino Sportsbook and Lounge, an award-winning Dancing Rabbit Golf Club. And the sportsbook is awesome, full bar, serves food, great place to hang out before football season, but definitely during football season. Bartoo, good morning. What's up, dude?
Good morning, dude. We would have smoked the Golden Moon Casino yesterday.
I saw your post. How many WNBA and MLB games did you win?
It's actually bets. Because I bet 7 times per WNBA game. There's 7 different plays on every game that I play. So yesterday, I went 25, 13, and 1 in the WNBA and Major League combined. So it's been like that for like 4 or 5 days now. Just absolute heater on these things. And you know, it's ironically, it all traces back to what you guys talk about all the time: football. My WNBA model is a football model. And I know that sounds strange, but if there's a scoreboard, if there's offense and defense, it's all the same thing, man. It's all the same thing. Offense and defensive scoring efficiency is king. College football, NFL, Major League Hockey, Major League Baseball, NBA, you name it. It's all scoring efficiency. And, well, now that I can legally bet anything I want in the state of Oregon, I can do that all year round.
Okay. We can't do that here yet. So we've got the sports books, which is awesome, but, right. Mobile betting is not in play yet. It got held up in the legislature, but it'll be back on the table next spring. I don't know. I'm not sure if it'll go. So we'll see.
Not privy to that. Hey, just whatever it is, anybody listening, okay, make sure that your representatives know that you want multiple options. See, here in Oregon, all we have is one mobile option, and I get squeezed on the juice. It's a monopolistic behavior because there's only one option for Oregon residents. So state of Mississippi, you want mobile betting, make sure that they vote to open it up to multiple operators, not just one, because then the juice will get you.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Hey, I want to, I know the Pac-12 imploded, but I want to start with Bama and kind of where the SEC is today and what you and I talked about yesterday. And so paint a picture for our listeners, 2011 Bama and Georgia, when Nick was rolling and Rick couldn't get over the hump, and then today.
Okay. Well, first of all, let's introduce to everybody listening what the main job that I have, or what we do in college football, and that is college football staffing analytics. We have the biggest database in college football. We are the future of college football staffing. And so in our system, we have every coach at every position in the FBS and FCS since 2009. We have 15,182 guys graded in our database. But one of the things that it allows us to do is we can go back and we can look at 2011 Alabama staff and grade that entire staff as it was compared to Georgia, as it was compared to Georgia and Alabama today. And we just started doing this, and it was fascinating because I asked my data partner, I'm like, okay, I mean, where's Alabama gone, right? Because we all know that the recruiting gap from where Alabama was in 2011 to today, I think we'd agree the recruiting gap between them and Georgia has shrunk to next to what? Nothing?
It's a push.
0? It's a push, right? And so, and as I've talked about on your show, about 70% of SEC football is recruiting. Okay, doesn't matter where the game's played. You're a better recruiter over the last 4 years, high school recruiter over the last 4 years. 70% of the games are won by those guys. So what about the other 30%? Well, that's mostly coaching, a little bit of home field maybe, and some luck. And so now we can look back and go, okay, what were the coaching grades? And I had my partner Adam, I had him pull 2011 Alabama, just for just to take a look at it. That might be the best staff graded since 2009. Period. Okay. At that time, in 2009, in our system, there were 31 5-star coaches in all of college football. 31, all of FBS football. Alabama averaged a 5-star coach on that staff. Think about who they had. I mean, they had Saban, obviously. They had the best defensive coordinator the last 15 years with Kirby Smart. They had a really good defensive coordinator in Jeremy Pruitt as their safeties coach. McElwain, 4.5-star offensive coordinator. Alabama's staff was loaded. In our system, their average guy was graded at 92.7. That's their average guy. They basically had
their average guy was good.
Their average guy was at 92.7. Now, where are they today? That's the question, right? What's the gap? And Georgia with Mark Richt was at a 67.4. That's a 3.5-star average. It is a massive gap in coaching talent. I mean, absolutely massive gap. You're talking about the number 1 staff versus the number 41 staff in the country at the time, 2011. Fast forward to today. Guess who has a better graded staff? Georgia. Georgia's at 77.8. Alabama's at 75.6. So not only has the recruiting gap been closed, there was even there was a bigger coaching gap between Alabama and Georgia. You know, everybody talked about the recruiting gap at the time. There was a bigger coaching gap. That gap has been completely bridged. And Georgia right now, and I know it's analytics, it's numbers, and there's probably a better way to do it, but I challenge anybody to figure it out over the next decade. Georgia has closed the coaching gap as well. So I think when we're trying to figure out the puzzle of what's happened between Alabama and Georgia and Alabama and the rest of the SEC, one of the things that everybody overlooks is coaching, obviously, because you don't have the numbers. But I started looking at everything else. Okay. Tennessee's coaching staff today versus 2011, much better. LSU today versus 2011, better. Auburn today versus 2011, better. The Alabama was in a unique window in the SEC in that, yes, they had an ungodly amount of staff talent and huge player talent, but all around them, there was weakness in a lot of areas, even when you saw good recruiting, you know, because Tennessee was still a top 15 recruiter. Georgia was a top 10 recruiter, but the staffing wasn't there. Now, all those gaps have been closed. So even if Alabama's recruiting at the same level as 2011, all the coaching staffs around them have been catching up and gaps have been closed via coaching, not just players, but via coaching as well.
All right, Dave Bartoo on the Out of Bounds Show, brought to you by the Golden Moon Casino Sportsbook and Lounge. That is fascinating. So right now, with Georgia, Bama, the talent's a push, and Kirby Smart has a slightly better staff, right?
Mm-hmm. That's it. That's what's happened over the last 10 years. Is you've had the recruiting gap change, but you also have had the coaching gap breached as well. So they're on very, very equal footing right now.
Okay. Who is the closest? I guess LSU's the closest to the two in the league as far as coaches, you know, grades and talent.
Yeah, this is okay. This year they are. But if Texas was in your league, they'd be number 3.
Even though they can't win, just because, but they have talented play callers and special teams coordinator. Wow.
Oh my gosh! Right now, if you gave Texas a brilliant head coach and pick any of them, I mean seriously, you give them Nate Saban, you give them Heupel, you give them Smart, you give them Freeze. I mean, you go down the list. There's a lot of good head coaches. Texas's big weakness is just Sarkisian's ability to figure out how to do the head coach side of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's a 5-star offensive coordinator, top 3 in the country, got a top 5 defensive coordinator in the country. might be one of the best overall staffs in the country outside of the head coach. He's put together a monster staff, incredibly good, top 10 recruiter. So I'm curious to see if Texas, what they can put together this year. The window was there last year. The window is there this year. And I think that's probably the biggest enigma in college football today is where is Texas going to land? Because by the numbers, it's a 12-0 season, right? I mean, there's not a lot of teams that project out with their talent and coaching to have a 12-0 season. Georgia's one, Texas is another, Oregon, Ohio State.
I think you'd have Texas at 11-1 because they go to Bama, right?
Oh yeah, that's right. They go to Bama. I forgot they had that one in there. So they're at 11-1. I was thinking about Oklahoma.
But still, that's college football playoff. So I see where you're going.
Right. Yeah. It's there. But I think that next gap from Georgia to Alabama down to LSU, LSU has the talent and they have the offensive staffing talent. I think where LSU is really weak is on the defensive side.
Okay.
Staffing, coaching staff, in terms of trying to compare apples to apples with all these guys is you start getting to this level and there's very little that differentiates them. Very little. It may just be a better quarterback or it may be a better DC or a better OC or a smarter head coach or who knows what. There's very little that differentiates them. I think LSU, to win at the level they want to be at, I think they have to improve on the defensive side.
Okay.
By the numbers, what I'm looking at, I don't think they're there yet. I think they're still a step behind staffing in terms of comparing them to Georgia and Alabama.
All right. Dave Bartoo on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. That's wild, and that's why Bama. Yeah, something else we talked about, Bartoo, was okay. So this Georgia's flipped the script, both coaching and talent.
Yeah,
but also there's three teams that were on a roller coaster ride the last 15 years that all have good head coaches now. Tennessee, Josh Heupel. Auburn, Hugh Freeze, LSU, Brian Kelly. And give credit to Saban. He took advantage of a window of opportunity where you just described Georgia's flaws. Florida went through all kinds of turmoil, and the three I just referenced were good sometimes, but an absolute and total roller coaster. It's just not like that today for him, for Bama.
Right. Usually when you look back, you and I've talked about this a lot over the years, and I try to make this point as much as I can when I have the opportunity. But usually when a team goes on a run, there's a window, right? We look back and go, oh, man, that was a great team. But they also jumped through a window of opportunity because of what was falling apart around them. And I saw that in my backyard. I think one of the best examples in your backyard was the SEC East. Several years ago, Florida was in turmoil. Tennessee was a mess. South Carolina was a mess. Kentucky was a mess. It was all Georgia's, right? I mean, it was Georgia's window of opportunity in the SEC East. They didn't have a strong coaching staff, but they had massive talent, right? And it was Mark Richt's opportunity to jump through that window of turmoil. And he didn't. The better coach did. Gary Pinkel jumped through it. We saw a team that couldn't even recruit in the top 40 win the SEC East. Probably won't ever see that again.
He won it twice.
He won it twice. Why? Because of the window, right? Tennessee wasn't strong. Florida wasn't strong. Georgia had a weaker coaching staff, and Kentucky wasn't strong. South Carolina wasn't strong. So a really good coach took advantage of a window of opportunity right here in my backyard, right? Chip Kelly, Mike Bellotti, Mark Helfrich, a couple national championship game runs. Right? But look what happened. Washington, massive turmoil. USC, massive turmoil. UCLA, turmoil. Utah just got into the conference. You look back on it now, the conference is completely different. The landscape, the offensive ability, that window disappeared. And so a lot of times you'll see really good teams pop up, really great coaches, but a lot of it, they're taking advantage of a window of opportunity within their conference or division because there's turmoil.
Okay. How would you describe the gap? We didn't discuss this, but I want to go over it real quick. If you can how would you describe the gap between Ohio State and Michigan, both talent and coaching staffs. I know Harbaugh's gotten the best of them the last 2 years, which is really impressive. But I know Ohio State out recruits them, and I don't know much. I don't know as far as how the staff. I know Harbaugh had a lot of turnover. So how does that look, Bartoo, between Ohio?
Yeah, you look at the numbers. Okay, I mean, you look at the recruiting. We know Ohio State's top 3 in the country, right? Over any 4-year period, over the last decade, they're top 3, top 4 recruiter. Okay, so they have elite talent. So you check that box. They're just better than Michigan on paper from a talent standpoint. From a coaching standpoint, it's pretty even. Day and Harbaugh, both top 10 head coaches coming into the season. Offensive coordinator, you'd lean Day. Defensive side of it, pretty much a toss-up. All the support guys, it's pretty even. So I think what it really just comes down to is you look at all those numbers, you say, okay, Ohio State should win more of the football games. And over the last 10 years, they have.
Sure.
Right? Now, you're talking about some recency bias. Michigan's beat them, twice in a row?
Yeah.
Ohio State, beat them 8 times in a row before that? So a good rule of thumb is the better recruiter is going to win 75% of the games.
Okay.
Ohio State's done that, right? But the situation in which Michigan has beat Ohio State is it just may come down to somebody had a better strategy, somebody was lucky, somebody had a great player that somebody else didn't have. I think was it 2 years ago, from a weather standpoint, outdoors in Michigan? Guess what? Ohio State, you and I have talked about this. They're built for the turf. They're built for a national championship run. They're not built to get the crap kicked out of them in the snow outside. They got to be able to throw the ball. So some of it, again, a little situational. But overall, if we take exactly who Michigan is today and exactly who Ohio State is today and extrapolate out the recruiting is going to stay the same, you and I are going to take Ohio State 7 out of 10 times going forward.
Okay. All right. Bartoo on the Out of Bounds Show, powered by the Golden Moon Casino Sportsbook and Lounge. And for real quick, we'll do this again, but Mississippi State and Ole Miss, it really hasn't mattered where the game is played. They've both been winning on each other's field. But because Arnett's new, and you like Arnett and some of the things he's done, but because he's new right now, if they played tonight or even in November in Starkville, and they will, Ole Miss has slightly better talent, and Kiffin and Golding are better play callers than Barbay because there's no, he hasn't ever called it at the Power 5 level, and Matt Brock's brand new. Am I right there?
Yeah, well, you're exactly right there. Mississippi State has one of the youngest staffs in all of college football. In fact, there's only 31 staffs out of 131 that average less than 3 years of experience at every position. So when it comes down to numbers, what do I always talk about? Sample size. We need data.
Right.
Right. We don't even give a guy a full grade until 4 years.
Right.
Well, if your whole staff is averaging less than 3 years of experience, Zach, brand new head coach. Brock, your DC, Brent, never been a DC before. Barbay, we got 2 years into it. 2 excellent years prior to it, right? At Central Michigan and App State, 2 very solid, excellent years. But it's really a question mark on something like that. So, but recently, like you said, they've traded winning on each other's field. But prior to that, I remember the first time I came on your show and I said State's going to win at home this year. And that was probably the first time you laughed at me on the air. and then won. Right. And then it went back and forth. The home team was the winner for several years. And a lot of that is because I feel that the talent gap just wasn't big enough to overcome the home field. Even though I talk about home field advantage not being that big of a deal in the SEC, it's still there. So I still say overall, Mississippi State, Mississippi are very even. And I think the Egg Bowl is going to be awesome this year.
Yeah, well, last year it went down to the last play of the game, or pretty much 2-point conversion that was knocked down. So it was super close. Okay, I don't think we've got time for conference. I know you're not that emotional about it, but there's a little emotion. You're an Oregon Duck alum. We may have more time later in the week or next week because I've only got about 3 or 4 minutes max that we can dive into the fact that the Pac-12 is gone and these teams moved to the Big Ten and Big 12. And then maybe we'll do some of that a little bit later. How about that?
Yeah. Well, I can. If you got 3 minutes, I'll give you my overview.
Yeah, do that. Do that.
Yeah. Let me just the winners and losers in this, maybe, right?
Okay.
Because why did everybody do it? It's all for money, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, it's a business move. It was a business move. It's for money. Duck fans, Washington fans, Utah fans. You can say it was for this, that, and the other. Shut up, dude. It's business, right? I mean, I've been in mergers and acquisitions for 20 years, and I know that 99.9% of everything was done for money. Who wrote the biggest check? So, but here's the big difference in terms of what Oregon and Washington are facing. Okay, right now, Oregon and Washington in their conference, there are 5 top 35 recruiters. 5 in their conference. Okay, their new conference has 11.
Ooh.
So that the road to 10-2, 11-1 to try to be in the playoffs is a whole hell of a lot harder. The Ducks go from the number 2 recruiter to the number 5 recruiter. Washington goes from number 3 to number 7. So the odds of Oregon and Washington getting into the playoffs versus where they're at today took a big hit. And that's what it's all about, right? I mean, besides the money, it's trying to get in the playoffs because the Bowls are dead. Hell, we just lost the Rose Bowl. Rose Bowl's dead. Bowl system is completely dead now too. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, on the flip side, look at Utah and Arizona State. Now, you and I have talked about Arizona State trying to figure out why the hell they can't be great at something. Right? I mean, they are great at being in a desert, being in a beautiful campus, and having all sorts of assets all over that campus. They can't win a damn thing. Football, baseball, basketball, you name it. They never even went to a Rose Bowl. All right. But Utah is the number 5 recruiter in the Pac-12. They are now the number 1 recruiter in the Big 12. Utah has 5 top 35 recruiters in the Pac-12. They have none in the Big 12. Guess whose path to the playoff just got massively easier?
Utah.
Arizona State and Utah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they don't take advantage of this, shame on them. I mean, Arizona State, you want to talk about a reset? You got a brand new coach. You got a brand new conference. Everything. I tell Arizona State fans, don't even worry about the record this year. Try to be 5-7. Just pop a top 30 class. And, Utah right now is posed to be an absolute monster because the Big 12 is not used to playing smash mouth football, and that's all Kyle Whittingham shows up to do. Drink beers and kick ass, and he is all out of beer in your stadium.
The dude looks like he can bench press 400 pounds. I love it. All right. So I guess the question is, should Oregon and Washington have taken the Big Ten? Well, we'll get into it more later.
Oh, yeah, it'll be some other time, but it was for money. It was Oregon made the decision and everybody else followed. So
right.
It is what it is. That's corporate America. Tradition and culture are always for sale for $1.
That was good stuff. Thanks, buddy. Be good.
Take it easy, brother. Thank you.
Dave Bartoo on the Out of Bounds Show, powered by the Golden Moon Casino, Sportsbook, and Lounge, and award-winning Dancing Rabbit Golf Club. Lunch today brought to you by Fleetway Market. Pulled pork, one of those pulled pork sandwiches or their blue plates. Fleetway Market and the Market Cafe in Gluckstadt. Ooh, that sounds good. I'm hungry. Quick trip to the beach, then I'll be back. That was a good show today. It's a good show. All right, we'll see you tomorrow.